Thank you for joining me. Today we are going to discuss Pokemon Legends ZA from a technical standpoint. Now, Legends ZA is a display of the most technical competence that Game Freak has ever exhibited. I'm going to discuss today the street lamps in Legends ZA, how they were implemented on a technical level, and how they are better than implementation from titles that Game Freak has launched in the past. So we will want to progress the game to nighttime. It's early morning here at the moment, and it looks like the street lamps are still on in the early morning, but we won't see the effect we are looking for. So let's go ahead and find a bench so that we may pass some time until we can see the lamps in the evening. There are a few different kinds of street lamps that we see in this game, so let's go ahead and take a look at a few. But I think this Pokemon will want to engage with me. I am sustaining damage, so I think we will have to deal with this Pokemon. I shall inflict a bite with my Gyarados. You may behold the Alpha Gyarados is quite larger than other Gyarados. You may behold my other Alpha Pokemon who are all quite large. Yes, very large. How fantastic. When you catch Alpha Pokemon, they are big, chunky friends. I think that's quite nice. So, if we take a look at this first type of street lamp, there are really only two very basic visual elements that are used to create this effect. The first is lens flare. Lens flare is something that we can implement in a number of different ways, but in this particular situation, it is most likely a billboard. Now, lens flares can be more dynamic and implemented in a way that reacts to your positioning, but this is a more faux lens flare that is created through the use of a billboard, and it looks like this billboard is designed to face the camera directly. So no matter what position the camera is in, the billboard will face the camera, and the billboard is a quad. It's two triangles. It's basically two polygons. It has a semi-transparent texture, which looks like a lens flare. It creates a sense of a lens flare, as you can see. So it has those sort of light shafts coming out of it, which are not actual light shafts. They are merely part of a texture, and we use bloom. Bloom creates a haloing effect that looks like a blurring between light and dark pixels. It's one of the most common visual techniques we use in gaming, and it's very pleasant. It's one of the more important visual techniques we use in modern games because it helps us apply a design philosophy I refer to as breaking the line. A visual line is the most boring thing to look at in a game, and it's quite unpleasant. And bloom is just a very easy way to break the line. So that is what we can see here are two effects. Now, there's something interesting to note for the real-time lighting. This is considered real-time lighting. You can see it is affecting the ground, which we will refer to as the terrain for the purposes of this video, and you will see that it does actually affect the characters. You see the characters are receiving light from the lamp. Now, you may be asking, why is this such a big deal? This is a big deal because this has never been done in a Pokemon game before. For some reason, Game Freak is averse to having environmental lighting affect their characters. It's partly what contributes to the games looking basic and people saying that the graphics are bad. It's not that they are not able to have the environmental lighting affect characters, it's because they choose not to. So having the lighting affect the character is very subtle here. I'm not sure why they made it so subtle, but it is very nice to see that kind of effect. I'm heartened to see Game Freak deciding and choosing to implement more modern visual design philosophies as opposed to being rigidly stuck in the past. Now, what is a little unpleasant here is that this light does not cast shadows. You can see that my characters are existing in this odd plane where there are no shadows being cast on the ground. So it's a little unpleasant, and it's jarring because during the daytime we see the characters being lit by the sunlight and casting shadows from the sunlight. So one must wonder and ask, if characters can cast shadows from the sunlight, why can't they cast shadows from street lamps? So this is something that I hope Game Freak will consider in the future, considering they no longer have to be restricted by developing for the original Switch. Assuredly, their upcoming titles will be Switch 2 exclusive, and they no longer have to abide by this extremely archaic and frankly nonsensical design decision here, is to not let environmental lighting cast shadows. So this is already a huge step in the right direction, that they have let environmental lighting affect their characters. We can also see this in practice if we head over to places like this stall here. You will have to pardon me, I've been playing a lot of Digimon Time Stranger, and I've been mashing the R1 button in a vain attempt to try to ride my Pokemon, specifically Scolipede. I see this friend and I start just mashing R1, and I think that I'll hop on the Pokemon's back and ride him, but I guess this game does not have that, and Digimon does. So let's go ahead and switch to a smaller Pokemon so he's out of the way here. So it's great. It is fantastic seeing environmental lighting, even though it's extremely subtle. I would like it to see it have a stronger effect, but the protagonist character here is being lit by one point light source. The 4 light bulbs are not emitting light. Actually, there's 5 in there. It's only 1 point light source. There is something that is, again, a little jarring and unpleasant here, is that that light is not casting shadows. As you can see, the seating here, the makeshift furniture, you can see the light is actually extending underneath the vehicle, and that's partly what contributes to why it looks so basic, and people tend to say the graphics look bad. People are not able to put into words because they may not fully comprehend this on a technical level, but they do understand that something looks off. What is off is that there should be shadows being cast underneath the truck because of that light. This furniture should be casting shadows. The character should be casting shadows, but they are not. They absolutely can do this. They have chosen to not do this. It is for an aesthetic reason. They're choosing this because they want the game to look a specific way. Unfortunately, I don't think Game Freak comprehends that it looks quite jarring, and it would look significantly better if the point lights were to cast shadows. Let's go ahead and take a look at some other street lamps now, and there's one type that I find particularly interesting. We may need to go ahead and fly on away. Let's go ahead and look for one somewhere in the distance. Let's fly on over here and see if we can find some other street lamps. Just imagine how pleasant this would look to see shadows being cast by this furniture, the light coming out of the window. It already has quite a nice haloing effect because of the bloom. We have good use of reflections in the windows to convey a sense of depth. It's not real depth. We are not actually creating things, the literal thing. When we develop games, we are not creating the literal thing. We are expressing something. We are conveying something to the end user, and it would just be fantastic to see these lights casting real-time shadows here. Let's go ahead and take a look at this street lamp, which I find the most interesting here. Now, this is fascinating because when I first saw this in the demos, I was certain that we were looking at volumetric lighting, and I thought there's no way that Game Freak would use real volumetric lighting. That would be very expensive. Volumetric lighting has a high performance cost, not in terms of money, but your rendering budget. We will go ahead and find a bench so that we may return to the evening hours here. It looks like dawn has already broken. Now, when I first saw these street lamps in the demos, I was convinced that they were volumetric lighting because they're quite convincing. If we have a look here, and volumetric lighting uses very advanced calculations to convey a sense of density in the atmosphere. And I was convinced, and I thought, gee, that looks really good. And the reason that looks good is because from different angles, it looks like it's proper volumetric lighting. But as I was playing, I noticed something. If you view this from a very specific angle, you will see harshness along the edges here, see? So if I look at it from this angle here, you will see the edges of that light shaft. And it's not a real light shaft, it's a faux light shaft. It's expressed and conveyed. There's harshness there. If I were to view it from a slightly different angle now, you will see a softness on that light shaft. Now, if we navigate our character underneath the lamp, we will reveal the way that this is implemented here. Do you see it? You can see the harshness of the 3D model. This is a 3D model. I see 1, 2, 3 sides. This is most likely a 6-sided cone. The cone is narrow at the top, wider at the bottom, and there is a semi-transparent texture that is applied to that cone, and it is most likely using an additive shader which brightens the pixels behind it. If we have a look underneath the lamp, you can see that the cone only has polygons visible on the outside. It does not have polygons on the inside. Now, if we hit it at just the right angle, we can see the cusp of that. So this is an extremely simple implementation. If you are working on your own 3D games, this is one approach that you might try yourself. The reason why I respect this technique is because this is extremely performant. This technique that they have chosen has an extremely low performance cost. A less competent developer would have just used volumetric lighting because a less competent developer does not know how to use simpler basic techniques, all used in a way that is efficient and expressive. That is something that takes consideration and experience. So whoever implemented this has some degree of experience working in a 3D environment. We have never seen this level of competence in terms of using a game engine to create a scene in a 3D space. We have never seen competence like this in a Pokemon game before. And I'm not saying that as an insult. I'm saying that as a compliment that Game Freak is moving in the right direction.